Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark, post-draft, post-free agent frenzy edition. And as always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are you doing today, Clay?
Parker, I'm great. It is post everything. I guess it's good and bad from a content perspective. We know we're not going to run out of. I know this is the one show, and we already projected this, that we weren't going to run out of things to talk about because of both draft and free agency. I just wish. Do I wish to kind of spread it out throughout the 2 months so we could at least be a little steady? We'll see. But I just have a feeling it's going to be a big show tonight.
Yeah, well, hey, we still are going to have at least one winger trade to get to at some point, right? So you know, tonight's the big one, right?
Yeah,
beginning of July, and then we only have 2.5 months until training camp.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have just 10 shows of nothing to talk about. That's fine. So make sure you're subscribed for those.
Yes, absolutely. How was your week? Canucks stuff notwithstanding, how was your week?
The week's been good. It's busy.
Yeah.
We're doing a little house hunting, so we're sort of in that process right now. So it's been very stressful, very busy. But
found anything good?
Yes, but we didn't get it. So we're back to the drawing board. But it's
Do they know who you are? Do they know that you are ParkersPucks?
You'd think that would help. Apparently it doesn't. But no, it's been good. We had, of course, the good draft day last Wednesday, which was fun. Free agency on the weekend. It's going to be...
and development camp. There's like 3 things we can talk about. It's crazy.
Yeah, development camp I have not paid any attention to. I don't care that much about, to be
Me neither.
honest.
Yeah.
So that's good. We can skip most of that unless you guys have any in-depth questions. But we'll go over the draft, of course, because the Canucks did make a handful of picks. We'll go over free agency, especially the 3 big names, and that should take us pretty far, I imagine. Clay, did you do any? Sorry, I didn't check in on the channel this week. How how'd your thing? How have things been going?
So Wednesday night, I wanted to come on your stream, and then I had someone over. So I did a quick 6-minute. We got Tom Willander. Awesome. Yeah. And I watched some of your stream, and then we played ping pong for the rest of the day. Then on Saturday, when they were breaking all the news, I was actually heading out to a baptism. I knew it was going to be, they were going to do something. So I had Gail drive, and I tried to do a couple car vlogs, but car vlogs when my car was moving. Don't worry, I wasn't driving, and I almost threw up, man. Like I almost threw up by the end of the. It's just not good. It was fine. You know, I was a little bit rushed in my analysis, and then I was happy, and then I was able to calmly talk about Akito Hirose, you know, my Japanese brethren. So you know, channel is fine. It's growing slowly, but I don't get too, you know me. I don't get caught up in subs, likes, numbers. I just, as long as you and I together and individually are providing good, safe, trusted content, that's what matters to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's we're getting in. It's going to be a good year. If the Canucks do anything useful, and again, we'll talk about free agency, and I think they did fine. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yes. Are they a playoff team? Who knows? But before that, maybe we jump over to Lucas real quick with a nice little $10 donation. Thank you very much, Lucas, for the super chat. Talking about the Canucks might be buying the Chilliwack Chiefs, which would also give them the Chilliwack Coliseum, which I thought was Prosperous Center. Maybe it's not that anymore. But yeah, that'll be something that we maybe circle back on. But thank you very much, Lucas.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas.
Interesting that the Canucks are looking to expand their sort of offerings as well.
And also Lucas, not only that super chat, also using his monthly membership message. I don't know if we have like messages set up, but you can acknowledge. So yes, Lucas has been a supporter of Canucks After Dark for 11 months. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And Coach Rob gifted a membership. Thank you, Coach
sweet.
Rob. So Taylor got that one. So say thank you, Taylor, which you already did. So
thank you, Taylor.
Sorry. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Rob.
Should we get into some? We're doing draft first, I assume. Yeah.
And before we get to Tom Willander, were you surprised? To walk me through, because you were streaming. I was watching your stream. I was eating pizza. I don't know what else I was doing. So tell me your thought process as you saw the picks knocking down.
Yeah, obviously we had the narrative going of like, man, Michkov would be sweet if he somehow fell, but didn't have much hope of that happening. Right. I mean, the names we had heard, the big names we had heard were really, Simashev, Willander, and whoever the other defenseman was. Reinbacher. Okay, he went way earlier though. So Reinbacher goes 5th. Yes. And that was sort of the turning point, right? We had Anaheim go off the board with Carlson. going for the third guy instead of who everyone had second. And I mean everyone had Fantilli number 2. Every single draft ranking that like the consensus board used. And then you get Reinbacher at 5, which was surprising. Simashev, who we thought might be available at 11, and was like a real late riser, went 6 to Arizona. And now we're starting to think, okay, you have some big names still on the board, right? Philly goes Michkov. And I was saying during the draft, I was like, I wonder if the Canucks maybe try to make a move up and jump Washington, but obviously that didn't happen. And I wasn't expecting it to. I just wanted chaos, and I thought that would be fun.
Yes.
And then, you get Detroit, or you get Washington going Leonard, which was fine. Then Detroit goes pretty high off the board with, I think, consensus number 16, Nate Danielson, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And then
I was relieved. Weren't you relieved? Weren't you relieved when they took him?
Oh, yeah, that was great. and at that point, we knew the Canucks were either going to get, they could get Zach Benson, Dalibor Dvorsky.
Yeah.
One of them would be available.
Yes.
Right? And St. Louis went Dvorsky, leaving Zach Benson, who was on the consensus board number 6, and had me thinking, oh boy, we're getting some value.
So I was watching your stream, a comment here and there, and I know that you were pining for Benson. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and again, it's not really any reason in particular other than that his number was higher. And the thing is, the Canucks got so... we saw it coming, right? They got linked to Willander over and over and over. That it was like, okay, they're going to end up picking him unless something crazy happens, right? Unless there's because they're probably assuming that their top 8 guys on their list won't be there at 11, right?
Yeah.
And so Willander might be like the 6th guy on their list. But you see a guy like Benson drop, and maybe there's a chance that they have him higher. Clearly, that was not the case, and they go with the boring pick, the less exciting name,
which I was very happy with.
Were you?
Yeah, I was, and no, thank you for running down the top 10. I have nothing to add to that aside from the fact that because the Canucks were linked to Danielson and Willander, as soon as Danielson went to Detroit at 9, who always has a habit of helping us out, Zadina on waivers. Remember that from Quinn Hughes' draft year? That's pretty crazy. So I know that Benson has definitely the higher ceiling. I also think that Benson has you could argue has the bigger, the lower floor too. Whereas Willander, as you said, is a safer pick. Maybe not the highest ceiling, but not the lowest floor. So, and I get the whole thing about best player available versus positional need, and the Canucks can try and spin it or argue that they thought that was still the best player, and it happened to fill a positional need. I was fine with it because we don't have any of those type of guys on the right side, so I was okay with it.
Yeah, they went for probably best value available if they think like just positionally, right? Like Edhunsen's going to be worth more than a winger if they end up being the same caliber. Right. So that kind of makes sense. Right. Yeah, everything we've heard about Willander is middle pairing. Yeah. Right? He will probably be like his floor is a 5 and his ceiling's like a 2.5, 3. Right. It's sort of like he's probably going to be a good second pairing guy, which is great, and you're happy with that. But not as boom or bust as maybe a little less exciting, but maybe better in the long run.
Sure. 3 things real quick. Lucas, another donation. Thank you. Detroit goofed not drafting Quinn Hughes in 2018. Zadina waived today. Yes. Lucky, fortunate. There was also the Barrett Hayton pick. So yes. Thank you, Lucas, again. Second thing is we have another, we think we're legendary. We got Lego Rocks in here. Thank you, Lego. We appreciate everyone being here. But Lego, thank you for stopping by. He's saying he was not on board with getting Danielson at 9. Mixed feelings about the Wings taking him at 9, though. Okay, all good. And thank you, Gio, for being here. And the thing I was going to say, Parker, is do we have to say technically Willander with the V? Because you saw that clip, right, where they asked, they did ask him what's the proper pronunciation. And he didn't.
I missed that.
So he didn't want to, make anyone feel bad, but he did say in Sweden it would be Willander, so with the V sound, and then he didn't go with but you can say this. He actually kind of paused, and then all the reporters kind of chuckle and say, okay, we can work with that. So we can say whatever we want, but
I'll start saying the correct thing. I missed that. So
well,
I will. I'll jump on that train.
Well, I'm gonna beat the Hirose drum but that's later in the show.
Yeah, that one's also not that hard. It can kind of go.
But if you're not Japanese, you don't know. Okay, but back to Willander, yes. So how are you with it now that we're almost a week out?
I'm fine with it. And I wasn't upset with it at the time. I was sort of like, classic, right? Of course, that's what they did. They went with the Swedish defenseman, right? Like who no one had heard of until 2 weeks ago. It's sort of on brand.
Yeah.
But again, they haven't given me reason to thoroughly doubt every decision they make yet. Lots of people do like the player.
Yeah.
So let's go with it for now.
Yeah.
And see what happens. And it could be, it's easy for us, and it's easier for Canucks fans, I should say, not necessarily us. It's easier for Canucks fans to look at this and be like, oh, wow, remember last time we picked the sort of boring defenseman over the exciting winger, right? Or exciting forward, how that turned out. I mean, that's not going great for Calgary now either, but it's, I think there's still some, a bit of a sting from that's being unfairly levied at Willander.
That's fair.
Sorry, you got to help me with this.
Yeah. So it's the V over the W but Willander. Yes, not Willander. Okay. Yeah, Willander. Exactly. So we were almost right. We were saying Willander. It's Willander as opposed to
way easier.
V.
Cool.
You got it. Regardless, Tom. And we're not gonna judge Tom just by the way he speaks to the media. But I don't know if you saw on draft day, Parker, and on I guess you didn't see the one they posted yesterday. He is so mature. Like his mastery of the English language is good. He says the right things, and he tried to give really non-stock, non-conventional answers to questions. What's this camp like? What do you need to work on? What are you impressed with? What do you like about Vancouver? Again, you're not going to judge him based on how well he can speak. Having said that, he's saying the right things so far, and a safe pick, which I was high on. I love your reaction. I did see you were watching your TV, and you kind of came back and you said they went Willander.
Does that worry you though? That he is so well spoken, et cetera, that maybe that they valued that quite highly, and maybe that, maybe they went with a player who had maybe they liked slightly less skill wise, but had more, you know what I'm trying to say.
I know exactly what you're saying, because we've both been in HR. We've both done interviews, or we know how that works. Yeah, you can talk yourself up. You can talk a big game, and if you come across as genuine and very articulate, just like we do, yeah, sure. You can actually raise your stock a little bit. So that's a really good point. I'm not saying that Zach Benson can't speak. I don't even know how serious the Canucks were about Benson, but right. I'm sure that Willander did not hurt his chances at all. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
And I think. Yeah, that was sort of my thought. I saw them like, oh no, did they get sucked into this guy's talk? But I mean, obviously, they have enough scouts. They should be fine.
Yeah, they should be fine. But I like, the highlights I've seen. I saw a few highlights up to the draft, knowing that there's a good chance we take him. Of course, I've been watching some stuff after, even some clips from development camp, and his skating is as good as they say it is. They say his offensive creativity not there yet, but maybe that will come. But I do like his skating for sure, and you can skate yourself out of trouble a lot of times.
Yeah, that does help for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll have to keep an eye on Zach Benson. Yeah, see how that goes. If he ends up being fantastic, then we can be mad, and we have every right to be.
Any other surprises, Parker, for you? Let's just look at the rest of the first round. Where there, I was kind of surprised that Oliver Moore went so low at 19.
Yeah, that was a bit surprising. Honestly, Sandin Pellikka I thought would go farther down the list, but the fact that all the other defensemen went early, and there was no defenseman really on the list for a while, right? I mean, you even see, I think after Sandin Pellikka, there was no more defensemen like the top 30 of the rankings I was looking at. But 1, 2, 3, 4 more D went in the first round, right?
Yeah.
You had
Bonk.
You had Bonk. Is he related to Radek, you think?
I don't know, but I just don't want to say the next defenseman's name. You can say that one.
I'm assuming it's Molendijk or Molendik or something.
Okay.
Lindstein and Gulyayev is going to be my guess on that. Sure. We'll go with that. But yeah, so definitely defensemen were quite valued, especially once Willander went and there was sort of that run on defensemen quite early. The wingers dropped a fair bit, and you have to wonder if teams just aren't valuing wingers as highly, right?
Yeah.
Because wingers are pretty expendable in the NHL.
Yeah, just look at who Toffoli and Riley Smith going for 3rd and 4th round picks. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And by the way, the two guys, and I'm not gonna know here that I'm not the biggest draft and prospects expert, but I was certainly interested in the USA development guys in Moore and Perreault. And I'm surprised they went so low at 19 and 23. So that was the biggest outside of the top 11. And Daniil Boo, I was surprised. I don't even know who that is. I kept calling him Daniil Butt, but I guess that's not right. I was surprised he went so early. So, yeah, those are some of the surprises for me, for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right, do we want to talk about some other names the Canucks picked?
Sure. I don't know anything about them, but
I want you to read the next one.
All right. So with their pick in the 3rd round, the Canucks, they take at 75 Hunter Brustowitz.
That sounds pretty close. I don't know how it's actually pronounced, but I would believe you.
And for a guy who always complains about people mispronouncing emo, I should really do better with people's names, I think.
Yeah, you throw a Z in there, and I'm lost.
What do you think it is?
I don't know. I'm not going to try. Either way, he is a defenseman, also right shot, who put up almost a point per game in the OHL this year, especially assists wise, for the most part. Obviously, 3rd round pick, probably shouldn't get too excited, but seemed like a pretty decent pick process wise.
Can I tell you a funny story, Parker? So I thought I was so smart. I went to Elite Prospects and I took a screenshot of the consolidated ranking. I'm like, oh yeah, we picked this. This is a good pick. We picked this guy way later than everyone had it. And I was so proud of my tweet. And I looked and I saw that you had tweeted the exact same thing 1 minute earlier. But it didn't work out. Like then I obviously didn't do that for Willander and others because we kind of didn't do as well with the other picks. And
we pick and choose our spots, of course. So his ranking in the average list was 52. So 75 seems like good value. I mean that I didn't have much to know. I mean I can give you his blurb from Elite Prospects. Great puck moving habits and deception in his game, which enables him to be a force in transition. He can constantly make forward checkers miss with fake changes of direction, timely spins by moving the puck before they can get to it. He attacks space to fire a net, manipulates defenders to get shots through, and opens passing lanes to the slot. So sounds like an offensive defenseman is his focus, which is good if you're that's fair enough if you're putting up 0.85 points per game or whatever that amounts to.
No, thank you for that, Scott. And I love how we have 4 different pronunciations. We got a Brusnavich, we got a Bruce Stavnich. We got a Bruce Navish, and we got Brute.
Brute.
Yeah,
I like that one.
I do too.
And then their next pick, they go for Sawyer Mineo at 89th overall. Now, this one, if you look at the rankings, which I did tweet out.
You did?
So they picked him at 89. He was only rated on 4 of the lists.
That's not good.
No. So FC Hockey had him 167. McKean's had him at 176. Draft Prospects Hockey had him at 232. And NHL Central Scouting had him at 62nd among North American skaters, which is probably pretty good. Like it's probably like 120-ish, I would guess. And then so I tweeted that out, and then JPat responded because I said because I quote tweeted his tweet that said who it was. So I said feels like tough value at 89, but he was a plus 50 this season, which is absurd. Like to just be a plus 50, not even the top of his team, because that Seattle Thunderbirds team is unreal. And JPat responded like, that Seattle team is a machine. Definitely helps. So half a point per game, plus 50. Which just crazy numbers. But again, when
bit of a reach,
guys that he was based on everything we've seen, he's probably available in the 4th, right?
Yeah,
or the 5th, or the 6th, maybe. So
yes. By the way, last one. I like Jasper's suggestion on how to pronounce the other guy, Bruce. There it is, itch.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So this one was a bit of a reach, right? So this is
seemingly.
Okay.
Ty Mueller. Again, don't know anything about this guy. He ranked on anything? Oh, this is so this guy's 5'11", 185. He wasn't ranked on any of the lists.
Great.
And the Canucks picked him at 105. But then there's the pick I'm excited about. Vilmer Ulrichsen. All right.
Oh yeah, we had like
This
so
guy-
many picks. Yeah.
This guy they picked 107th. He's 6'6", 214-pound winger out of Sweden. Again, not really ranked in anything. Put up 21 points in 43 games in the Swedish Junior League. I don't care. 6'6" winger from Sweden sounds awesome.
Yeah. I don't know anything about him aside from his size, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah. Then they get Matthew Perkins a few picks later. Don't know anything about him. And then they get Aiden Celebrini.
Is that the one?
Is,
oh no,
that's not the right one, unfortunately. But his brother Macklin Celebrini will probably go first overall next year.
Oh, okay.
And he's from Vancouver, so maybe it just makes a little bit of a relationship, a good rapport for 9 years down the line when Celebrini is a free agent.
9 years. Well, I like your thinking. But this is one where people were saying he actually, this pick was more celebrated, no pun intended, Celebrini, than like the Perkins and Mueller ones, correct? A little bit.
So ranking wise on Elite Prospects, 235, 223, and then 140 among North American skaters.
Okay.
And he was picked 171. So I mean, at that point, it doesn't really matter. He's a defensive defenseman. He's mobile and he's physical. Is basically, which is probably a good thing to build off, right? Mobility is like a thing that you can't really teach, right? People will be like, "Oh, but Bo Horvat learned to skate." That's the exception, right? So if you can get a guy who has the good fundamentals, that's probably what you're really looking for that late in the draft, anyways. Is guys who can skate, and maybe have a bit of upside. So maybe that's the way they went.
Okay, so you did a good job of recapping what letter grade are you giving the Canucks draft this year?
I would say like a C+.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Like they didn't get any like guys who are consensus steals. They got the guys that they liked. They didn't trade anything away, other than of course in the Ronick trade, but like they didn't seem to blow it really.
Yeah.
So, I've got no real problems.
I agree with that C+ for sure. Oh, by the way, Shannon becomes a new member of awesome. Welcome, Shannon. That is great. Thank you, Shannon. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So here's another. There's one thing I was going to... Oh, shoot. I just lost it because I got so excited to see Shannon as a new member. C+. Oh, dang it.
It'll
fine. Have to come to me.
We don't need to remember things. So that's the draft in a nutshell. I mean, I don't really have anything else to say on that. The first round was a dud.
Oh,
there was no trades.
That's what I was going to say. Not only no trades, but I know you made a comment when you're wrapping up your stream that this thing is really slow. And then I tweeted the second day, and I think I deleted it though but they almost finished rounds 2 through 7, 6 rounds in the time it took them to do the first round the day before.
It's absurd. It's honestly like it's not good enough TV to warrant it, right? The NFL draft, they knock out rounds 1 and 2 on the same day, and it takes about 5 hours, maybe 6.
Okay.
But it's good TV. Like, because there's trades. There's people moving all over the place. The guys that they're picking, like, are all 21, 22 years old. Like, they have good tape, and they project to be in the roster day one, right? Like, oh, this guy that they picked 78th overall is going to be a starter on their offensive line day one, right? That's exciting. Right. That's tangible. The NHL draft, they need to pick it up. It needs to be like a 2.5 hour at most, because it just runs out of so much steam, right? Once you get to pick I got to pick 16 and my team was done. I knew they weren't trading back into the first round because it doesn't happen in the NHL. Like, what do I have? What reason do I have to keep watching? Right? There was nothing pulling me in because the NHL doesn't do anything exciting, and these players are still so far away from having an impact if they ever will. That it's so much different than, like I said, the NHL or the NFL draft, where it's like every single pick is like, hey, this is a guy that we're putting in the roster right now.
NBA too. So here's one. I know what I was going to ask you, Parker. This will be the last draft topic. Did any part of you, when Detroit picked at 17, did any part of you not regret the Hronek trade? We don't even know what Hronek's going to do. I think he's going to be fine. But did any part of you say, "Oh, I remember this was the bit that the Canucks had for a little bit"? Did any part of you say that?
I actually said that on the stream.
Okay.
around when the Canucks were picking.
Yeah.
Because I was sort of thinking, I'm like, if they really like Willander, you think they could have gone him at 17 and then pick a guy like Zach Benson at 11, right? Or try to turn 17 into like 14 and then take both of them or do something like that, right? Maybe you have that ammo to pull something off.
Yeah.
Again, all hypothetical. I'm sure Hronek will be fine, but it was sort of just a thought I had, like, maybe I wonder if they handcuffed themselves, not knowing some of these guys might drop as far as they did.
Sure. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. I agree with your C+, and I think it's funny how whether you like the pick or didn't like the pick, it got overshadowed just 3 days later with all the other news. Well, actually, 2 days later is who the Canucks qualified and didn't qualify, and then boom, right in the next day of free agency.
Yeah, there really is not much downtime, hey? It was like,
not at all.
Here's the draft on Wednesday, and then free agency Saturday, right? You get 2 days. It's going to be stressful for front offices, and it's stressful for us, and we're not even that involved.
Before we get to free agency, so on the Friday, we know that there's this, it's funny, the draft is 28, 29 of June. Then on June 30, because you have to know what's going to happen on July 1st, you have to publicize, you have to make all your qualifying offers. And we won't spend too much time on this because we want to get to the guys that they actually did sign. But no surprise, they qualified a guy like Hirose, like Höglander, like Kravtsov, just so they can retain his rights. But a couple guys that they didn't qualify, one was Dermott and one was Ethan Barrett. No surprise, I think, to either of us, given what we talked about the week before.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. You know, we sort of thought maybe they'll swing back on Bear. But yeah, those are two defensemen that they thought might be a useful piece and didn't really work out, right? I think Ethan Bear was great. But man, the fact that he got injured at the World Championships, that just sucks for him, and it probably cost him a good chunk of change. And then for Dermott, I mean, you know, that. Remember how stoked we were on those trades?
Oh, I was.
Right? Yeah. Oh, sweet. We just flipped Hamonic for Dermott. That's great. And then he has ended up being, you know, obviously no fault of his own. Like, you know, the concussion issues, and you know, it sucks that, you know, they never got to actually see how he ended up being.
Yeah. By the way, Dave, thank you for the donation, Dave. Dave also says he was talking about, I guess, ways to speed it up or make it more interesting. Combine the awards with the draft and award the Hart at the end of the first round.
Man, did you watch the awards?
No.
Did
you?
Why would you? It's just not entertaining.
You sound like a grumpy old man, and you're like 25 years younger than me.
It's because I like the sport, but I don't like I don't like the other garbage that they try to do.
That's fair.
Trade deadline's fun. Again, not as good as the other leagues. And free agency's fun, not as good as the other leagues. Yeah, the draft, like once you get past the first like 10 picks, it starts to get to guys that you've never heard of, and you know, people aren't that interested anymore.
So I before I pass the baton to you and you go crazy with the free agency, they did one thing. They made one signing on the day before free agency, and that was Noah Juleson. A nice little 2-year contract for him.
Yep. Yeah, I have really no feedback on that. Was it $775 per year?
Yeah. Yeah, like every guy like they've been signing is like $75 a year. Yeah,
and that's fine, right? I mean, he gets paid $450 if he gets sent down. Not our problem. That's ownership money. I feel like they're doing what I wanted them to do, and that is get a bunch of bodies at training camp defensively, and hope you get a guy breakout, and hope you can have a guy. All right, you know, whether it's Juleson, whether it's Hirose, whether it's McWard, right? Like, just start throwing all these guys in, and if one of them starts to do really well, give them a run in preseason and say, hey, there's spots available, right? Like, at least one. You know, we can probably, you know, there's room to outwork a guy and maybe take a spot, right? Because I don't think Brisebois is locked into that number 6 spot right now.
Correct. And one other thing, and I apologize, Carol, both Parker and I, we're using our back end of StreamYard, which doesn't show when someone gifts a membership. We have to actually have the stream up on a different computer, which we do, but we don't always look at it because we're so focused. So, Carol, thank you. Not only did you use your 11-month membership acknowledgement supporter, but you gifted 5 memberships, which is awesome. So welcome to Japan 4, Jay, Ivan, Erwin, and Chris, all thanks to Carol. So thank you, Carol, and welcome to the rest of you. Carol, that is awesome. Thank you. And thank you, Shannon, for being our eyes and ears. Because Parker and I are so excited to talk about what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. So free agency wise, the Canucks signed 3 players who we heard that they were going to sign beforehand. Essentially, no tampering, of course.
None.
No. Definitely not with every single team in the NHL. So let's start with their first signing of the day, which I believe was they announced. Did they announce
both? Yeah, Cole and Blueger together. Yeah, Cole and Blueger
that
together.
was weird. So let's start with Ian Cole because that's the bigger one.
Yes.
So he gets a 1-year deal at $3 million.
Surprising.
He's played 748 NHL games.
Wow.
He is a stereotypical, basically number 3-4 shutdown defenseman. This to me, I mean, he's 34. He'll be 35 by the end of the season. The fact that they gave a 1-year contract to an aging free agent that has like Stanley Cup pedigree is an absolute miracle.
Yep.
Like there's there's no issue there. Like 1 year, there's no risk. If the Canucks are bad, which they might be, you can trade him.
Yep.
You're not obligated to him in any way. It's not like, oh my God, we're stuck with this guy for the next 3 years, et cetera, et cetera. We might get to that with Soucy. But yeah, like this is just, we use this term a lot, but like the tidy piece of business, right? Like it's sort of what it is, right? They picked up a guy, it's $3 million, cheap enough. If he's on your second pair and he's playing 20 minutes a night, sure.
Yeah, I like this. The fact, because we had heard for both Cole and Soucy 3 years, $3 million. So to get 1 year at $3 million, you're right. There's no risk here at all, and he's won 2 cups. He's that Pittsburgh combination with Rutherford and Alvin, and we've seen. It's funny, like maybe it's kind of the opposite of buyer's remorse. I get more excited once the signing happens. But I started to watch highlights, and the guy's pretty good. The guy's, we kind of don't know much about him because he was in Tampa and Pittsburgh, mostly in the East. A couple stops in the West. So I guess this is his 8th team or something. He's played a lot, right? Like
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, this is his 8th team. So he's a quarter of the way through the league.
And I know St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Colorado, Minnesota, so half West, half East, but we just don't hear a lot about Ian Cole. But he can move. Yep, I think he'll be really good. And you're right, though. It's a win.
The only risk is that he's absolutely atrocious, and they are $3 million short for the year. Right, that's the risk, but it's a pretty decent risk to take. This move is a solid B+.
Yep, I'll go with it.
Then Teddy Blueger was the other one announced at the same time. Of course, Soucy's the big one, but we'll get to him last. Keep you guys on your toes. Theodore Teddy Blueger. He is 28 years old. He'll be 29 by the start of the season. And again, risk-free, 1 year, $1.9 million deal.
Yeah. So this one's interesting, Parker, because I think I talked myself into him before they signed him because we read the articles in The Athletic and they would talk about P.S. Suter or Teddy Blueger or insert another guy here. And then they got him for 1.9. I'm like, okay, good. Same reasons. And 1 year, you can get off it if you need to, blah, blah, blah. But then I started to look at his stats and he's not like the most prolific offensive guy ever. Yeah. And maybe they didn't get him. Like, you always want some production, but I do know that he's a great penalty killer. I do know that he's good. It's funny how they always laud the stat of how good he is on faceoffs on the penalty kill. I kind of want him good on faceoffs. It's not like you get better just because it's a penalty kill, but I guess it's more important, obviously. So all those kind of stats were pretty good. Offensively, does he have more than your guy, Neil Zaman? We'll see. But if he can play solid and help the penalty kill, I'm fine with this one too.
Yeah. So last year he played 63 games. He had 16 points. The year before that he had 28 points in 65 games. So a bit of a regression there. However, and he didn't play much in the playoffs for Vegas. It was a bit concerning. But again, pretty low risk. I'm sure they are envisioning him to compete for the 3C spot. The problem is they don't really have anyone for him to compete with yet, right?
Yeah.
Because you go Patterson Miller, and then you have Blueger and Neil Zaman, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's sort of where it ends, unless you want to look at. I'm looking at you think Atu Ratu's fighting for that 3C spot? Because I
this year.
Don't.
No, I mean,
You think who else do they have? I mean, Lekaramaki, he's definitely not. Tristan Nielsen, probably not. Max Sasson, probably not. Right? It feels like there's still a bit of a gap to fill with in a 3C role. Of course, they can't, which we'll get to. But yeah, it's. I think it's a fine deal if he ends up just being a good fourth liner. They're paying 1.9 for. It's fine. If he ends up being a decent third liner, then even better.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm fine. I like what you said about it. It gives, at least on a depth chart, it's nice where you can just simply say it's PD, Miller, Blueger, Amon. And even if Blueger and Amon aren't amazing, at least you're not seeing a Sheldon Dries' name in there or
yeah. And Dries is fine in his limited time, but you basically now have three guys in Dries, Amon, and Blueger competing for 3 and 4C spots. The problem is they're all a little below that, right? I think Blueger's a little worse than a 3C. I think Oman's a little worse than a 4C right now, and same with Sheldon Dries. So that's not ideal. But you get one more guy in there. You get a 3C, and then you can bump Blueger down to 4C, and now you suddenly have a nice, well-rounded group down the middle.
You think that's what they want to do? You think they're not done?
I mean, so we knew that they wanted to get a 3C. Yeah. That might just be how they envision Blueger, right? Yeah. They might just be like, all right, this is going to be our 3C. Good enough. We're done here. Yeah. Because you might be surprised to hear this, but they can't sign anybody else right now.
Well, they can. They got to get
right. They have to clear something up. You might be shocked to hear the Canucks don't have much cap space.
And Parker, the way Patrick Alvin was talking about Teddy Blueger, I think he can score 10 to 15 goals, even though that would be a career high. Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of get the sense that they're willing to ride with Blueger as their third C.
Yeah. It's not ideal, but it might be okay.
Yep.
All right, and then sign number 3. Which came a little bit later and was one that we were rumored for a while, and it's one we talked about last week, and that is Carson Soucy, who played for Seattle last year. He played for Minnesota before that.
Yeah.
He played for Minnesota before that. So last 2 years, he had 21 points in 64 games in 2022. Last year, 16 points in 78 games. So not huge points. He was a plus on basically every year of his career except his first, where he only played 3 games. So who cares?
Yeah.
But he's sort of been a consistent plus, sort of a top 4-ish. In Seattle, though, he was sort of resigned to more number 5 role, which is a bit concerning to be giving a bunch of money to a number 5 defenseman, maybe. But obviously, they're looking at him and saying, "You're going to be you're going to be." Actually, is he going to be the number 5 this year?
No. Well, we can talk about this. It depends how you line it up because the conventional one to me, and we can talk about his contract in a set, Parker, but the conventional lineup to me that I think, and I've seen a lot of people say, and because it's not rocket science, if we agree that we're going to split Hughes and Hronek up as our 2 best puck-moving defensemen right now, then conventional wisdom would be Hughes, Cole, Soucy, Hronek, and then one of Hirose, Rathbone, Willander, Brisebois with Myers. So that's kind of the conventional one.
Right. So the idea is you have Myers on your third pair.
Correct. Expensive, but yes.
Soucy and Cole on your second pair. That makes sense, right? But you sort of get what I'm saying, right? They sort of have Myers, Soucy, and Cole, which is sort of this you have sort of three guys who can maybe be second pairing guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Which gets a little bit interesting to see what they'll do there. But yeah, so for Soucy, 3 years, 3.25. I think we discussed this last week where the rumors were 3 or 4 years above $3 million. And I said, and I looked at, I think Evolving Hockey's projection, I think was 3 by 2.6 or 2.8 or something like that.
Okay.
And I came to the conclusion last week of, as long as it's not 4 years, 3 years I can be okay with as long as it's not a dumb amount of money. 3.25. I don't love it, but I think it's fine. There's risk there, right? He might not be able to fit in your top four, right? He might be a third pairing guy, and now you're paying 3.25 to a third pairing guy, and you're still paying Ekman Larsson, and you're paying Tyler Myers $6 million. Suddenly, you're still wasting a lot of money on defensemen that aren't as good. So if he can live up to that contract, that's fine. And I'm glad 3 years. Relatively harmless if he's not fantastic.
Right. Yes, that's a smaller percentage of the cap for his year 2 and year 3. But I think it is fair. Like, we're not being negative Nellies to suggest that there is a tiny bit more risk here because of the 3-year term where we were just applauding that we got Cole and Blueger for only a year. So by using the same logic, you do have to be a tiny bit more concerned. I'm not overly concerned, but this one is 3 years. But what's really funny, Parker, is I've heard a lot of what you just said is what happens if he cannot elevate himself to a second pairing guy, which I have time for that argument. But on the optimistic side is, man, all this guy needs an opportunity. He's only 20 years old. He's a big guy. He's got some good offensive instinct. Maybe he's perfect for a second pairing guy. So
definitely,
who knows?
And I think he will be good. It's just that he might not be. There's that chance, right?
Yeah.
But I think I have decently high hopes. And then of course there is the no trade clause thrown on that as well. So the first 2 years are full no trade clause. And then 2025-26, the last year of the contract, it's a 12-team no-trade clause. So theoretically, it can be essentially a no-trade clause. Let's say they get to 25-26, and they are somehow still selling at the deadline. He could put 12 playoff teams on that list. They better be in a playoff spot in 2025-26 and not being buying rentals and not shipping them off.
And if we're really bored in the dog days of summer, Parker, for our shows, we can try and guess what his 12 teams are on his no trade clause. But that'll be for a show later in the summer.
Betcha Winnipeg's one of them.
But yeah, Winnipeg and Calgary, they got no. Calgary didn't sign a single. Anyway, we'll talk about it later. The thing with Soucy and Cole have both talked about how, and I think this is awesome. And you and I have talked about this. The fact that you have Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar on your staff, I think that is very appealing to defensemen. Sure. It's got to be. It's got to be.
Yeah, you'd have to think so. Yeah. That definitely would be an inspiring group to join. Mm-hmm. I always forget about that. I forget that Adam Foote is here. That's weird. Doesn't that feel weird?
Yeah, it's kind of strange.
I've never thought of him as anything other than part of the Avalanche.
Yeah,
and it's weird that it's just bizarre. Anyways, so where does that? I guess what holes do they have? I mean, let's talk about cap space here, right? So right now the Canucks have Pearson and Poolman on LTIR. Pearson will be ready for training camp. Apparently, he is healed. It's a miracle. Cap friendly with LTIR candidates. That's including Tanner Pearson. The Vancouver Canucks have $3,269,583. Tanner Pearson, taken off LTIR, makes $3.25 million, which would leave the Canucks with $19,583 of cap space.
They can sign me for that.
No, they can't. Technically, there's a minimum.
Oh, okay.
And that is with 21 guys on the roster. I guess that would be 22 because I would count Tanner Pearson with me on the roster too. So the Canucks have no cap space. Absolutely zero cap space. Which might be tricky, right? It means that throughout the year, you might have to be dipping into LTIR quite often if you have any injuries, right? You have a guy that gets hurt for a few games, like calling someone up might be like not doable.
Yep.
You accumulate cap space throughout the season. So if by some miracle the Canucks are contending, or at least in a playoff spot come trade deadline time, they won't have any cap space to go get anyone, right? So it feels like, and the Canucks have a billion wingers, there still needs to be another domino to fall.
Yeah, I agree. And we're sitting here on July the 3rd, and there's got, is it the 3rd or the 4th? July 3rd. There's got to be, well, they have to. They're not even cap compliant. Well, they are if they bring Pearson. No, they got one more guy to sign. You're right. They're cap compliant right now with one guy short.
Yeah, which isn't ideal.
Yeah, no, not at all.
I mean, they don't have they only have one goalie on the roster technically right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of a problem. It's an interesting spot. I mean, all we can hope for is that they make one move a week for the next 3 months.
So if you were a betting man, then let's just say that they were only allowed one more move for whatever, just for conversation. Are you moving Myers or are you moving a Beauvillier or Garland? If you only had one more move,
I'm keeping Myers at this point. I don't think you're going. I think he's worth the $6 million he gets paid? No. Do I think he's probably worth about 3.5? Right, that's sort of where I'm thinking right now. He's on the last year. I don't know if you're going to get anything for him if you trade him. And if you do, you then have to go find another defenseman, right? Because he's going to play 21 minutes a night, 22 minutes a night. And he's going to cost you a few games, but he'll also do fine in others. It's going to be a winger. They just have too many of them, right? To the point where you have like wingers making a lot of money on your third line. And that's not ideal. To me, like if I could get rid of one, it would be Anthony Beauvillier, right? And I've said that a bunch, but what are you getting for it? Like, are you paying to give Anthony Beauvillier up, right? 3 more years at almost $5 million, or sorry, that's Garland. Yeah. 1 more year at $4.15 million. I mean, is any team looking to take that on right now?
Well, Toffoli only fetched a 3rd or 4th rounder, right?
And Toffoli's a pretty good player.
Yeah. And Riley Smith, who's a really good player, a Stanley Cup champion, didn't he only fetch...
I think he got nothing, right?
Right. What did they get for him?
Didn't he get like a 7th? Am I crazy?
A 2024 3rd round pick. Yeah.
Okay, so essentially nothing.
Yeah.
So Beauvillier has no value. Probably negative value. So then you have to look at the Connor Garland option. 3 years left at just under $5 million. And I bet you're not getting much for him. Yeah. But that seems to be with all the smoke that there's been around Garland, it seems most likely. So if I was betting, I would bet on Connor Garland getting moved. If I was running things, I would be doing everything I could to move Beauvillier.
And would you, as a couple people suggested in the chat, would you hold on to Beauvillier and Myers until the trade deadline? The Canucks might be out of a playoff spot, and then these guys, you can flip their contracts because they're free agents anyways, UFAs. Is their value better at the trade deadline, and can you afford to hold on to them until then?
Sure. Both of their values are better at the trade deadline, especially because you can retain, right? Yeah. You can take Beauvillier to the trade deadline and retain $2 million of that $4 million, and a team might be happy to pick them up for a second, let's say.
Yep.
And same with Tyler, and maybe they do really well all year, and then it's even better. Same with Tyler Myers, right? And I think that's why you keep Myers, especially because you can probably flip him at the deadline. He's going to be owed almost no money, like actual money. That if the Canucks are out of it at that point, then you can probably, again he does have a 10-team no trade, Myers, but I think he'd be willing. I'd assume to move at that point. So yeah, they might, but you need cap space now, and I think there needs to be someone to go that makes a decent chunk of money, and Beauvillier does just seem like the easiest option.
Sure. And just to finish the thought off, Parker, about the Canucks' busyness on Saturday, they signed veteran defenseman Matt Irwin to a 1-year, $775, no harm, no foul. He can battle for that 6th spot left side, and then a goaltender who I didn't know anything about. Did you know anything about Zach Zachenko?
I've heard his name before.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
What are his stats? He has played 7 NHL games, put up a 901 in 2021-22. Last year he had an 895 in the AHL, which isn't great. And even the year before that he had a 877 in the AHL. How old is he? He's 25. Okay, maybe there's something to put together, but I mean, his AHL numbers historically haven't been good, which makes me doubt that he's going to be doing much. I mean, he's going to be the AHL backup, right? That's the idea. Right.
So if we agree that Seelovs and Martin are battling for the spot behind Demko, then the other one goes to AHL, and then you got Tolopilo and Zachenko now. Yeah. Okay.
And you probably put like, again, I don't know who Tolopilo is, but maybe they send him to the coast if he's the third, or maybe they just send him back to Sweden where he was playing last year. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't realize they signed this guy. When they signed him in March?
Yeah.
Never heard this name before in my life. All right, cool.
Yeah. And then finally, so that was all Saturday. And then on Sunday, no unrestricted free agents, but they signed Akito Hirose, to a 2-year contract. 2-way for the first year, 1-way for the second year. Your initial reaction to that when you heard it?
Great. No surprise, right? I mean, they picked him up. They could only give him the rest of last year, because it was a March signing, and it's kind of a weird way that works. But basically, it means that they have him for 2 years. His qualifying offer will be basically nothing at the end of that, right? If he ends up being a player, that's great. He is already 24, right? Like,
true.
He's not going to get a lot better, most likely. But I mean, I think he might have a real chance at getting involved this year, a decent amount.
Yep. Even if he's not the third pairing guy on the left side, he could be the first. He could be the extra defenseman, the healthy scratch, and
sure.
Get in.
I mean,
we know the Canucks used 16 defensemen last year, so these guys are all going to get a chance to play.
Yeah. These guys get hurt sometimes.
Once in a while.
The Canucks travel more than anyone else in the league, right? Like, it's going to happen.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
that's free agency.
Yeah, and the big thing for me, Parker, is I think Patrick Allvin showed remarkable restraint compared to what we're used to here, and I think he's got a plan. He saw that this team needed to be better defensively and better on the PK, and he actually addressed that. And Benning was willy-nilly. We had those weird summers where he did Sam Gagner and Alex Burmistrov, and it was just weird signings all the time. Anders Nilsson. There was some rhyme or reason.
I forgot they had Burmistrov.
Yeah, and then he bolted for Russia. Remember that?
Yeah, that was bizarre.
Yeah. Benning Benning did have one. Benning did have one good free agent summer, and that was when he got Ryan Miller and Radim Verbata. That was a good one because those are two very important players for us. Yeah, but aside from that,
remember Joe Cramarosa? I don't know, that name just popped in my head. He was off waivers though. So.
Oh shucks.
Yeah. All right, so that's free agency. I mean, where do you see the Canucks then? The team's basically the team, right? They're probably going to get one winger. Pretty decent top six. Third line might look like it's coming together. Fourth line is maybe a bit iffy, but there's some guys who could compete. Defense, you got some decent guys back there, and you got Thatcher Demko. Where does this team? What does this team do this year?
Hear me out, Parker. I think that Hronek and Mikheyev, a healthy Mikheyev, are the two X factors. Hronek, we saw 4 games, and we just want to show the fans why we had to give up so much for him. So fine. Mikheyev, he got hurt in preseason. He was never the same. We talked about this last week. So I look at Hronek and Mikheyev as almost, not exactly, almost UFA signings as well. Add them to Cole, Soucy, and Blueger. I'm looking at 5 guys that can make an impact. Last year, I said Canucks third place in Pacific. I don't know what I was thinking. I said behind Vegas and Edmonton. I do think that LA, I think Calgary, we don't worry about. I think LA got no goaltending right now, although they got Pierre-Luc Dubois, but they gave up a lot. I could see Vancouver battling Seattle and LA for third. And if not that, even you say Clay, that's way too optimistic. I don't think it's out of. I don't think it's unrealistic to say they should be battling now for a wild card spot for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So we have Vegas, Edmonton comfortably in there.
I agree.
Think. And then LA had a big year last year, and so did Seattle. Calgary fell apart.
Yeah, and they didn't sign anyone.
They're not going to be any better. They're going to be bad, I think. I think they're going to be like an 80 point team. Maybe, right? Like they could be worse. I think it is going to be basically Vancouver, LA, Seattle in that mix. I think Vancouver probably ends up being 4th or 5th in the Pacific. Yeah, I just don't. I think their roster's decent. I just don't see them taking a big jump. And I think they just need to get out to a good start. I mean, the start last year really was bad, right? I mean, 5-2 to kick the year off, and I went to 3 of those games on the road, right?
Yeah, nice one.
What a waste of my time.
You went to the Philly game, the Washington game,
Washington, and
Seattle. No,
and Seattle.
No.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Okay, it's your fault.
Yeah, all on the road. Lots of money into those. Didn't see a win. I think Seattle stays around 100 points, which is concerning to me because they looked pretty decent. And like, is LA going to be worse? Like,
they're going to be worse.
4 points.
They're going to be worse. Oh yeah, they gave up a lot for PLD. They got no goaltending. They're getting that
PLD contract might not do great.
Yeah.
Okay, no, you're selling me. Maybe LA's around like 96 points, and then the Canucks are maybe hopefully around there. Again, they only had 83 points last year. That's a big jump they have to take. I think a lot has to go right. I think
how about this? Yeah. Sorry.
I was just saying, I think you're going to need JT Miller to be really good, right? I think that's going to be really, really important. And you're going to need the Canucks to learn how to kill a penalty.
42, 29, and 11 for 95 points. Realistic? 13 games over 500.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're probably missing the playoffs.
You 97? 98?
I think so. I mean, it was 95 last year, right, where the Jets finished.
Yeah.
I mean, is the Central bad now? Do you think?
Well, some people are hoping that the Pacific puts 5 teams in because Colorado's always going to be good. Dallas is going to be good, but I think Nashville, Winnipeg, Chicago all suck.
So Minnesota was 3rd in the Central last year.
Yeah.
Did they do anything this last week? No. Okay. So they might again be decent. So let's leave them in.
Yeah.
But what did Winnipeg do? I mean, I think they got a decent haul for PLD, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty. Do you think they get worse though?
Yes. Well, what did they finish with?
They had 95 points.
Yeah, they're going to be worse.
Okay. Now keep in mind, I don't know, was Winnipeg really good in overtime last year? They only had 3 overtime losses.
Wow. Well, they got some good players, that's for sure.
Well, so I'm thinking, because if you assume overtimes are about a 50-50, right? Yep. If I don't know, do they go like 9-3 in OTs? Because that's an extra few points that you can take away from them. Let's see. I'm gonna
6
see
points,
here. Yeah. It doesn't show me their overtime record. Darn. Okay. Either way, maybe they lose some of that, and then maybe then there's 5 teams from the Pacific. Yeah.
Parker,
are the Predators going to be better?
Nah.
Okay, see now it doesn't sound like you're informed. Now it just sounds like you're saying no for the point of being optimistic.
No. So Johansson's gone. They brought in a couple veterans. They brought in Luke Shen, and they brought in there's 2 guys. Ryan O'Reilly.
Luke Shen a bag.
Yeah, so they got Ryan O'Reilly and Luke Shen.
That's a good signing. That O'Reilly signing was good for them. Luke Shen though, I mean, 3 years at over 2? Yeah. It's crazy money.
Yeah. By the way, we have an insider in the chat who gave money. So Sam Smith, thank you. I have insider information from a family friend by the name of Jeff Merrick. So Sam, we have no reason not to believe you. That says it sounds like it could be Brett Pesce coming to Vancouver in the coming weeks.
Interesting.
So while Parker, while you think about reacting, thank you. 150 of you in here, which is amazing. Like the video. We only got like 31 likes. That's not a good ratio.
What are you giving up for Brett Pesce?
Thank you, Sam, for the donation. While Parker is thinking about what's happening here. Thank you, Sam.
Why is Carolina trading Brett Pesce?
I don't know. Ask Sam. Okay. He's the insider.
What are the Canucks trading for a very valuable player in Brett Pesce?
I don't know. Ask Sam. He's the insider. Sam,
like is that like Garland in a first? Like what are we doing? That's for a rental, right? Like I think Carolina wants to be competitive this year.
Yeah, they do. You know, I saw a comparison, Parker, that Carolina's like the Eastern Conference version of Vegas. They're not afraid to let guys go. They're not afraid to sign, take big swings, and they're always turning over their roster on the top end. Yeah.
Yeah, and Carolina was really good last year. I think they could be very competitive. Yeah. So yeah, I think I think the Canucks are going to be basically fourth or fifth in the Pacific, and if the bottom falls out of the Central, right? I mean, who else is there, right? Are we going to see? Sorry, it broke on me here.
St. Louis sucks.
Are we going to see St. Louis take a step? No. Arizona's doing nothing. Chicago will be better, but they're not going to go from. They're going to go from 59 points to
95
100, right? Yeah. Like they're not. Bedard is not 25 standings points.
Not yet.
Right? That's not yet. They were a minus 97 goal differential. He's not scoring 97 goals next year. Maybe there is only 3 teams from the Central. I think that's plausible. But again, a lot has to go right for the Canucks, right? Because if we're putting them 4th or 5th in the Pacific, or at least I am, then for them to get in, you need a Central team to fall out.
You do, yeah. I'm putting them at 4th in the Pacific in a wild card, so I don't need a Central team to fall out.
Well, what if an extra Central team gets in?
Nah,
fair enough.
I'm just kidding. I don't know. I'm hopeful. Yeah. And as optimistic as I was last summer, which makes me look like an idiot, I'm way more optimistic this year. But I'm not going to overshoot third. Like I'm actually going to reduce my expectations because this past season was such a gong show. It was ridiculous.
Well, remember we did our predictions.
Yep.
2 years ago, and we way overbet on everybody, and then did it again. And we're like, we're going to be more conservative.
Yeah.
And then we still went way over on a lot of stuff. So
I might have to change my tact.
Yeah. We get hopeful. We get excited.
Of course.
Yeah. We shouldn't, but we do.
Yeah, we do. We always do. Yeah. I'm okay with that.
So it's 11. We got 150 people in here, though. Thank you, everyone. Make sure you hit the like button while you're here. Do you want to take a question or two?
Sure. Let's do it. Give us your best question. We'll go for 3 minutes.
Also, I guess while we do that, some other stuff that happened. I mean, OEL got signed by Florida.
Yep. 2.25.
Yep.
2.25. Yep.
So
fine.
I think that'll be fine for them.
Yeah, they got Ekblad and Montour out for a while, so at least they get a veteran D.
Are there any other Canucks-related signings elsewhere?
Yeah, Burrows, 3 years, 1.1, San Jose.
San Jose.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's awesome for him.
Delia to Winnipeg.
Was that a one-way?
Yeah.
Really? So he's getting $3.3 million.
Yeah. There's no because I don't think it makes sense to do a 1.1 two-way. Like that seems a little high, doesn't it?
That would be weird. Yeah. I mean, they could even do like 1.1 700 or something like that.
That's true, which is very high.
But no, yeah, it is 1.1 flat. So good for him.
Let's go with this one. Parker, start this off. What do you do with Podkolzin and Höglander? Do you put them in the top 6 in preseason in hopes they develop, or do you keep them in the bottom 6? And do they even make the team?
7 preseason games don't matter as much as building chemistry for the roster for the regular season. I think this team, with how bad of a start they had last year and how on the edge of anything they might end up being this year, you need to go into game 1 of the preseason. You have no split squad games, which is fantastic. You treat game 1 of the preseason as if it is the start of the season, right? You can't be easy into it. All right, like we're going to take it easy for these preseason games, and then we go into the regular season. The Canucks haven't been good enough to do that, right?
Yep.
Tampa Bay can do that, right? Carolina can do that. Colorado can do that. The Canucks can't. They can't afford to do that. So I think, you probably have a couple of games. Like you probably make your lineup for what you think it's going to be for opening night. You trot that out there for game 1 of the preseason. And then the rest of the games you slot in auditions, basically, right? You're gonna maybe you take out your third pairing for a game and put in two different guys in your third pairing to audition them for defense, and then you take out your third line for forwards and then throw Höglander and Puckholz and someone else in there, right? I think they need to sort of have ideas for lines going into the season, and they can be broken if someone really impresses. I think the team just needs to start from game one as if it is the regular season.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually think only one of Puckholz and Höglander will make the opening night roster. Another one could be a healthy scratch because you can carry up to 2 forwards, 1D or 1-4, 2Ds. Regardless, I could see them being part of the 14 forwards, but I'm not convinced that they're both, because if we agree that Mikheyev and Kuzmenko and Beauvillier and Besser, for example, are going to take the top 2 lines, then you still have a Garland and a Pearson, or maybe a Di Giuseppe and Joshua. There's 4 right there for the bottom 4, the bottom 2 lines. Or does Höglander or Puckholz unseat one of those guys? But do 2 of them unseat them? I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I don't know. I mean, I think Höglander makes the team.
Yeah.
And that was just from the 2 Abbotsford games I went to. Like, he was very standout.
Yeah.
He's too good for the AHL. So I
agree.
hope he can take that next step and become back to a full-time NHLer.
I want both of them too. I want both of them
Absolutely.
too. For sure. Yeah. Yep.
All right. Any other ones you want to do here? Edmund was talking about a winger getting moved to fit on the salary cap. We think that does happen. They just have too many wingers. Viper thinks you have to have Höglander on the team because of waivers, because I guess he can, or does he have to go through waivers to get sent down at the
I heard that he's got like 1 game left and then he used up his quota.
Okay, so that would mean that they might not have him up
until they're absolutely sure. Yeah.
Right. Like, that might mean, like, okay, we're gonna start you in the AHL no matter what until we need you for injury, and then you're gonna have to earn your spot, right? Or you're gonna be a healthy scratch all year.
Yep.
So, interesting.
We'll see. We will see.
All right. Do you want to wrap it up there? You want to take a couple more? What do you want to do?
You're the boss.
Take one more.
All right.
You have to find it.
Okay. Well, this one's come up a couple times. What are your thoughts on this? Trade proposal, 3-way trade, San Jose, Carolina, and Vancouver. To Carolina, Erik Karlsson, 30% retained by San Jose. To Vancouver, Pesce. To San Jose, Myers, Rathbone, Garland, 24 first. Carolina, 24 second. What?
So the Canucks get Pesce for Rathbone, Garland, their 2024 first, and a 2025 first. No. I refuse.
That's a lot.
2 firsts. I'm not giving up 2 firsts for Pesce, who is a UFA in a year.
Yep.
Canucks aren't good enough for that.
Right. But
wasn't there? There was another trade that was rumored too. Hey.
About Karlsson or about someone else?
No, there was one today. About Frank Saravalli. So he's been in some hot water, Saravalli, with some rumors lately about how legitimate some of his reporting is. I mean, you had the one today with like the John Gibson thing where John Gibson's like, I'll never play another game in a Ducks uniform. And then John Gibson's agent puts out a statement like he never said that. And I was like,
what?
So it was a fun thing. But Frank Saravalli, apparently there was a deal on the table previously, which would be Tyler Myers straight up for Kevin Labanc. So it would be Myers to San Jose for...
Oh, they named Labanc. Ah.
Yeah, Labanc was named in there. So Labanc, also in the last year of his contract, UFA next year, $4.725 million. That sounds to me like another winger to throw onto the pile, though.
I liked Labanc a few years ago when San Jose was doing well in the playoffs, but not now.
Yeah, I mean, he had that one great year, right? Or 2 great years. I mean, he had 56 points one year.
Yeah.
And then he's sort of fallen off since then. Yeah, no, I have no desire for that, because then your defense gets worse. You're paying almost the same amount of money. You clear up a 1.2, whatever. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
I do think though San Jose ends up trading Karlsson, then you're on the phone and you're saying, we have a guy that could replace him on the right side, sort of.
Maybe. But then you have to replace him, right? Like, again, I think Myers is overpaid for what he'll be this year, but you still have to have a guy who's out there for 20 minutes a night. And there's not a lot of those out there, right? Are you trotting out Matt Irwin for 20 minutes a night? Probably not.
No Juleson.
Please don't do that.
Okay.
Wow.
A good show tonight. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the donations.
160 of you in here. Thank you all for joining. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you hit the like button while you're still here and subscribe. We do appreciate it very much. You can, if you missed any part, which I know a lot of you did, because the graph goes like, let's do it the right way. It goes like this throughout the show. So like 30 minutes ago, there was only 100 people in here. That means at least 60 of you weren't here 30 minutes ago. So if you missed any part of it, you can either rewind back to the beginning, maybe put it in your watch later playlist on YouTube, or you can find it on your favorite podcast platform in a matter of about 15 minutes. Listen to it on the way to work in the morning or whatever you guys would like to do. That's all linked down in the description. You can find me on Twitter at ParkersPucks, YouTube ParkersPucks, Clay, Twitter Canuck Clay, YouTube Canuck Clay. Very easy to find. Again, it's all in the link tree in the description. Clay, any parting words this fine Monday evening?
Well, we had a lot to talk about. I think we did a pretty good job covering. Thank you, everyone, for being generous, using your membership messages, gifting memberships, giving donations. Obviously, a lot of interest around this team right now, and for good reason. A decent draft, an even better free agency. We'll see what happens for the next 8 weeks now once development camp breaks. We're not sure how much news we're going to have. But right now, I think there's a guarded level of optimism around this team, and I will take that compared to what we just went through.
Yeah. Make sure you guys are subscribed for the next 12 episodes of having absolutely nothing to talk about. That'll be really fun. We try to make it fun. And as we get more into the dead season of the off season, more Q&A time, right? Tonight we couldn't get to much because we had a lot to talk about. But later down the line, we might be done at 10:35, right? And we can take some questions and
or
try
earlier.
To fill some air. So make sure you stick around, hit subscribe, do all that good stuff.
Yep.
Thank you all very much for watching, and we will catch you next week.